Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you're listening to this, I want you to do me a favor. Just for a second. Stop whatever you're doing.
If you're driving, maybe don't stop.
Tickles. Right.
Yeah.
If you're driving, obviously keep your eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, but just feel the texture of that steering wheel. Feel the weight of your body pressing into the seat.
Look at the dashboard, the road signs.
Exactly. It all seems pretty solid, right? Pretty manageable. It feels like the real world.
It does. It's our default setting. It's matter. It's physics. It's what we all agree on.
It's the baseline, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the hook that honestly kept me up last night. What if I told you that the random fleeting thought you just had about, I don't know, what you're going to have for lunch?
Or that weird dream fragment you can barely remember.
Yes. That one where you were trying to run through a hallway that never ended?
Yeah.
What if I told you that those things are actually more concrete, more durable, and more permanent than the steering wheel in your hands?
And that is the premise we are wrestling with today. And I'm not using the word wrestling lightly. This isn't just some, philosophical what if. Oh. We are looking at a source that claims this is the literal mechanical architecture of the universe.
It's a complete inversion of how we're taught to see the world.
Yeah.
Usually, we think the physical world is the stage, the solid ground, and our thoughts are just mist.
Smoke.
Just smoke dissipating in the wind, just brain farts, essentially.
And today's deep dive just flips that table right over. We're exploring the idea that the mist is actually the concrete and the table is the temporary illusion.
It is one of the most radical shifts in perspective we have ever covered.
I think it is.
It really is. So I want everyone to get comfortable. If you can, maybe dim the lights. We're going late night mode for this one.
A bit of a Twilight Zone vibe.
We are definitely stepping into a twilight zone of consciousness today. We're doing a deep dive into the electrical architecture of reality itself.
And we're doing it through the lens of one of the most fascinating and sometimes confounding esoteric sources out there. We are cracking open the Seth material.
Specifically, we are zooming in with a microscope on session 126 from the early sessions, book 3.
Right. And to really get the feel of this, you have to picture the scene.
Yes. The context here is half the vibe.
Yeah.
If you're picturing this happening in some sterile lab or, I don't know, a guru's mountain temple, you're getting it totally wrong.
Oh, completely wrong. This is as mundane as it gets.
We need to transport ourselves back in time. The date is January 27, 1965. It's a Wednesday night, roughly 9 o'clock.
And we are in Elmira, New York.
Deep winter in upstate New York. So it is freezing outside, snow on the ground, wind howling, all of that.
Inside, you have this cozy living room. You have Jane Roberts. Now, for those new to this, Jane is the medium, or the channel, who enters a trance state to speak for this energy essence personality known as Seth.
And you have her husband, Robert Butts Rob, sitting there just furiously taking notes with a pen and paper. No tape recorder yet.
And there is this one wonderful grounding detail in the notes for this particular session that I absolutely love. And it just adds so much texture to what's happening.
The cat.
Yes, Willie the cat.
I love that part. So Jane is in a trance. She's dissociated. Her voice has changed. She is speaking these profound, mind-bending, cosmic truths about the electrical nature of reality. And meanwhile,
their cat, Willie, decides it's playtime. He jumps up on her lap. He starts batting at her wool sweater, pulling the threads, kneading her legs, just being a cat.
And Jane, what does she do?
She doesn't break character. Seth doesn't stop. Jane, deep in this trance, just keeps going. The notes say she's aware of the cat. She even sort of incorporates the physical sensation into her flow, but the channel doesn't break for a second.
That's incredible. It's this perfect juxtaposition of the mundane, a playful cat destroying a sweater, and the metaphysical heavy lifting happening at the exact same time.
Yeah. It really grounds it. It reminds you that this profound information is coming through a regular person sitting on a regular couch with a regular, slightly annoying pet. It's not happening on Mount Olympus.
Exactly. Now, before we get too far into the weeds, and trust me, the weeds are electric tonight, we need to give credit where it's due.
Absolutely. This material is published by the New Awareness Network.
And if you find yourself intrigued by what we discussed today, and I suspect you will be, you really need to go to the source. We're just scratching the surface here.
We truly are.
You can find these books at sethcenter.com, the early sessions.
We're doing a deep dive, but we're essentially just holding up a cup of water from a very deep ocean. If you want the full experience, you have to go to the books.
And as always, our mandatory declaration. This podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We aren't selling you the secrets of the universe.
We're just reading the map that Seth drew and trying to figure out where the roads go.
And what a map it is. So the mission for today's deep dive is to explore a specific, and I mean specific, claim Seth makes in this session.
The claim is that thoughts and dreams are not just mental mist. They aren't just firing neurons that vanish when you change your focus.
They are actual concrete things. They have an electrical reality that exists independently of us.
That's the core of it, the independence.
That is the hook that got me. The idea that a dream isn't just a movie playing inside my skull, but a place I actually visited. And when I wake up, the place is still there.
Let's unpack that, because to understand that, we have to understand the foundations Seth lays out right at the very beginning of the session. He talks about the unified field.
Right. So Seth starts off by addressing this idea of separation. We look at the world and we see biology, we see physics, we see psychology, we see my dream life and my waking life.
And we treat them as totally different buckets.
I do. We love to categorize. It helps us function. We have a bucket for real stuff like taxes and gravity, and a bucket for made-up stuff like daydreams and nightmares.
But Seth says immediately, while I speak of separate fields and systems, you must remember that they are all one. He's setting the stage.
The analogy that came to my mind when I was reading this, tell me if this tracks. Think about your smartphone.
Okay.
You have a calculator app, right? Simple. And you have, say, a high-end 3D video game app. And maybe a weather app.
Totally different functions, different looks.
Exactly. On the screen, they look completely different. The calculator is just buttons and 2D grids. The game is this immersive 3D world with lighting and physics. If you were a tiny person living inside the calculator app, you'd think the rules of your universe were just math.
You wouldn't believe in the video game universe where dragons fly around.
Right. To the user inside the app, the boundaries seem absolute.
That's a very good analogy.
But underneath it all, it's all just the same operating system. It's all just electricity and code running on the same silicon chip.
Precisely. And Seth explains that these systems, the physical world, the dream world, mental world, they appear to be closed. He says, they are closed enough to retain identity, but because they are all formed from inner vitality, they are actually interrelated.
So the closed nature is just a convenience? It's just so we don't get confused?
Think about it. If the walls between your physical life and your dream life were totally down, you wouldn't be able to function.
Oh, it'd be chaos.
Absolute chaos. You wouldn't know if you actually went to work or just dreamt you did. You wouldn't know if that lion is real or a symbol. So the system appears closed to keep you sane, to keep your identity stable.
But Seth is telling us that, in reality, it's porous.
Everything leaks into everything else.
The insulation isn't as thick as we think. And this brings us to the first major whoa moment of the session, the nature of dreams.
Yes. This is where the chilling aspect comes in for me. This changes the definition of sleep entirely.
Seth says dreams have an electric actuality.
He does. He says, and I'm quoting here to be precise because it's so important, dreams have a definite effect within the physical system, but they do not happen within the physical system.
Okay, let's just stop right there for a second. They do not happen within the physical system. I think 99% of people, including most neuroscientists, would say dreams absolutely happen in the brain.
Right. The conventional view is that the brain is firing off randomly during REM sleep. It's sorting memories, taking out the trash, and it's creating a hallucination to make sense of all the noise.
It's an internal, contained event inside the skull.
Yes. But Seth is saying, what?
That's not it at all.
He's saying the dream is an event happening in a different reality, an electrical reality, and your physical brain is just catching the residue of
The
it.
residue, that is such a sticky word, like smoke from a fire happening somewhere else.
That's a perfect way to put it. Imagine a fire burning in a house down the street. You smell the smoke in your living room. Your brain registers smoke. But the fire isn't in your living room. The event is happening elsewhere.
So my brain is just the smoke detector.
It's the smoke detector. Seth says the physical system only feels a translation of the original dream experience. The real experience is happening to your inner self in a different dimension.
This is the part that creeps me out in the best possible way, Seth says. In this electrical actuality, they then exist independently of the dreamer.
Independently, that is the key word. It changes everything.
That means when I wake up from a nightmare, the nightmare doesn't end.
No.
I just left the room.
In a sense, yes. You withdrew your focus. You logged out of that server, to use your analogy. But the structure you created, the event, it exists in that electrical field. It has form. It has substance in that dimension.
It's like leaving a room and turning off the lights. The furniture's still there, you just aren't seeing it anymore.
And it's not just static furniture, it's dynamic. Seth implies that these dream realities continue to evolve. They have an electric validity.
So when we say it was just a dream, we are technically lying.
We are dismissing a valid construction just because it was built in a different medium. We respect bricks and mortar, but we disrespect electricity and thought.
And Seth says that's a huge mistake.
A fundamental one. And it's not just dreams. This is where Seth pivots to something that has even bigger implications for our daily lives. He applies this exact same logic to our waking thoughts and emotions.
And this is segment 2. Thoughts are as concrete as bricks. This is where I started getting paranoid about my own brain.
It induces a certain level of self-consciousness, doesn't it? You start monitoring your own thoughts.
Completely. Seth says, thoughts and emotions also exist as actualities. Within the electric system, dreams, thoughts, and emotions exist as actualities, and in what you may call a tangible form.
Tangible form. Now, he clarifies, though not in the form of matter as you are familiar with it. So you can't trip over a thought in your living room.
Right, you can't stub your toe on an emotion.
But in the electric system, a thought is an object. It has density, it has weight, it occupies space, for lack of a better term.
He actually uses a specific comparison that's really powerful. He says a man's thoughts are as concrete, in effect, as any building.
Just imagine the weight of that statement. We think of thoughts as airy, fleeting, invisible. Oh, it's just a thought. It passed.
Right.
Seth is saying, no, you just built a building.
And here's the kicker. This is what I'm calling the no-take-backs rule. Seth says, once created cannot be withdrawn, and once set into motion cannot be stopped.
That is the terrifying responsibility of this worldview.
It really is. I mean, think about the road rage I had this morning. Some guy cut me off, and for 10 seconds I was just seething. I visualized him getting a flat tire. I called him names in my head.
We've all been there.
If Seth is right, I didn't just have a private moment of meanness. I manufactured a mean brick and threw it into the electrical universe. And I can't go get it back.
You can't unring the bell. You've constructed a psychoelectric pattern. Now, this doesn't mean we should be paralyzed by fear of our own minds, but it does suggest that our mental environment is just as polluted or clean as our physical environment, depending on what we're outputting.
It gives a whole new meaning to watch your thoughts. It's not just about mental health. It's about cosmic construction.
And Seth adds that these thoughts affect worlds of which he is unaware. Because remember, the systems are all interconnected.
They're porous.
Exactly. Your anger today might be adding to a storm system in the electrical field that affects something else entirely. We are multidimensional architects, usually without a license.
Multidimensional architects without a license. I like that. I'm putting that on a t-shirt. But seriously, it makes you think about the collective atmosphere.
Yeah.
If a whole city is stressed out, are they building a literal storm cloud of electric anxiety over themselves?
Seth would argue, yes, absolutely. The atmosphere isn't just air, it's psychic debris and psychic structures.
But, okay, let's get technical for a minute. If thoughts are these independent things, what does that make the brain? If my brain isn't generating the thoughts like a factory, what is it doing?
This is such a crucial distinction in the Seth material, the difference between the mind and the brain. We tend to use those words interchangeably, but Seth draws a very hard line between them.
Yeah, break it down for me.
Seth views the mind as the inner attribute. It belongs to the inner self. It exists in the electric system. The mind is the software, the signal, the consciousness. It is not physical.
And the brain.
The brain is the hardware. It's the physical mechanism. Its job is translation. Seth says, thoughts are psychoelectric patterns set up by the mind and transformed to human codes by the brain.
So the brain is a modem.
It's a perfect analogy, yes. It takes the raw electric data from the mind and translates it into something the physical organism can understand and use: chemical signals, nerve impulses, language.
This explains something Seth mentions about inspiration. You know that feeling when you get a sudden great idea or a melody or a solution to a problem, and it feels weird, like it didn't come from you?
Oh, yeah. Writers talk about this all the time. The muse, the lightning bolt.
Right. It feels alien. It feels like a download. Seth says there's a mechanical reason for that feeling. He calls inspiration an instantaneous translation. It happens so fast it bypasses the brain's usual processing marks.
He says, and this is a great quote, "The individual seems not to know where the thought comes from because he does not recognize the characteristic mark of his brain upon it."
That is fascinating. So
Right.
normally my brain stamps a made in the brain logo on all my thoughts.
Exactly. When you think through a problem logically, your brain is chewing on the data, it's adding memories, adding language, adding your personal bias. By the time the thought is finished, your brain has put its fingerprints all over it. So you say, I thought this.
But with inspiration.
Inspiration comes in so hot, so fast, that it skips the stamping machine. It comes straight from the inner self. It's raw data. That's why it feels so perfect, and that's why it feels like a gift from the outside.
Because in a way, it bypassed the ego's physical filter.
It did?
Speaking of the ego,
Yeah.
we have to talk about segment 3, because if I thought the dreams are real thing was a shakeup, Seth's take on the ego completely flipped my understanding of who am I?
This is often a huge sticking point for people diving into metaphysics. We tend to think of our ego, our sense of I, our name, our job, our personality, as the pilot of the ship.
Or in some spiritual circles, we think the ego is the enemy that needs to be destroyed.
Right. But Seth takes a very technical, almost engineering-like view of it.
He says the ego is a physical construct.
Correct. He explicitly states, the ego does not exist within the electrical field. The ego is a product of the physical field, formed from physical birth on.
Wait, let's pause on that. The ego doesn't exist in the deeper reality.
Not originally, no. The inner self, the vast ancient entity that you actually are, exists in the electrical reality. But it wants to experience this physical world. It wants to play the game of Earth.
But it can't just walk in here. It's energy. It needs a suit.
So the ego is the spacesuit.
That's the perfect metaphor for it. The ego is the interface. Seth says the inner self adopts an ego to allow manipulation within the physical universe. Without an ego, you'd just be pure consciousness floating around. You wouldn't know how to use a spoon or pay rent or talk to your neighbor.
That makes so much sense. You can't type on a keyboard with pure energy. You need hands, and you need a personality to direct those hands.
But here's where it gets complex. The inner self breathes life into this ego. It gives it a spark. But then the ego becomes independent.
It's the Pinocchio story.
It is.
Yeah.
The puppet comes to life and starts thinking it's a real boy.
And Seth says, from that point on, the ego is independent. It's allowed to develop through heredity and environment.
This explains so much about the internal conflict we all feel. You know that feeling where you have a gut instinct or a deep desire to do something creative, but then this nagging voice in your head says, no, that's not practical, or what will the neighbors think?
Exactly. That is the conflict between the inner self, which knows your real purpose and operates on these electrical laws, and the ego, which is built by your environment and just wants to survive socially.
The ego is built by the physical world, so it obsesses over physical rules.
Yeah.
It's afraid of change. It's afraid of death.
While the inner self knows death is just a transition, so it's fearless. It wants to experience things.
It's like the spacesuit starts arguing with the astronaut inside it. No, don't go that way. I might get scratched.
And the astronaut is saying, we came here to explore, not to keep the suit shiny.
That is the perfect way to put it. So personal identity, the I feel deep down, where does that live?
Seth says personal identity resides in the subconscious, or the electrical field. It is held to the physical world by the ego. The ego is the anchor.
So without the ego, you just float back into pure energy consciousness.
You would, so we need the ego. We shouldn't hate it. Seth says the existence of the individual depends on a balance being maintained. If the ego is too weak, the dream universe intrudes. That's psychosis. If the ego is too rigid, you lose touch with your soul.
You need a spacesuit that works, but you also need to remember you aren't the spacesuit.
That's the whole game.
Okay, so we have this electric inner self, wearing a physical ego suit, building thought buildings and dream cities in an electric dimension. Where is all this data stored? I mean, if I'm generating terabytes of thought bricks, where do they go?
This leads us beautifully into segment 4, cellular memory. And this connects the biology back to the spirituality in a really fascinating way.
Seth talks about the body as a storage device.
A massive one. He says, even the electric reality of a dream is decoded in the furthest reaches of the most minute cells.
So my liver knows what I dreamt about last night.
Every single cell does. He says, dream experiences long forgotten are forever contained as electrically coded within the cells of the physical body.
That is wild. It suggests that our physical body isn't just meat and bone, it's a living library.
It's a library of electrical signals. And remember, Seth said thoughts are patterns. So as you live your life feeling joy, feeling sorrow, dreaming, thinking, you are building up this massive collection of electrical signals.
And they form a pattern over time.
Yes. Seth says these electric-coded signals then form electric counterparts of complete experience. The pattern is independent of the physical system while residing within it.
Okay, I want to make sure I get this straight. I am physically here,
Yeah.
but inside me, sort of superimposed on my cells, I am building a counterpart body made of all my thoughts and experiences.
An electric double.
Yes. You are weaving a duplicate of yourself, or rather a more complete version of yourself, out of electricity.
Yeah.
You are constantly uploading your physical life into this electrical format.
And this brings us to the big question, the ultimate question, death.
The transition. What happens to this electrical counterpart when the physical body gives out?
Seth is very clear here, and it's quite comforting. He says at physical death, the personality exists in its complete form.
The electrical pattern survives intact.
It's the ultimate escape hatch, because you've spent your whole life translating your physical experience into electrical code, your thoughts, your dreams, your feelings. When the physical mechanism breaks, the code remains.
The building you built stands, even if the scaffolding falls away.
That's it.
So the ego,
Mm-hmm.
the spacesuit, what happens to it? You said it was physical. Does it just die?
This is the beautiful twist in the whole thing. Seth says the ego, though it was originally physical, does not die, but its existence is changed from physical reality into electrical reality.
It gets uploaded.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's been energized by the inner self for so long, and because it has generated so many of its own electrical thoughts, it transforms. It joins the inner self.
Seth says, no individuality is lost, but it becomes a part of the inner self.
So you don't disappear into some blob of nothingness. You add your specific, unique chapter to the massive book of the inner self.
There's a humorous, slightly dark way to look at this, though.
Go on.
You are currently building your ghost, piece by piece, with every thought you have right now.
That is startlingly accurate.
If you sit around being miserable and hateful and anxious, you are building a miserable, hateful, anxious, electric structure that you're going to have to inhabit or at least deal with later.
It certainly adds weight to the idea of living a good life, not for some, external moral judgment, but for architectural soundness.
Architectural soundness. I love that.
If you build a house out of rotten wood, which are hateful thoughts,
Yeah.
you're not going to enjoy living in it when the physical body drops away.
That's brilliant. And Seth really emphasizes this reality of feelings over objects. He has this one great line.
I know the one you mean.
To the personality, a joy or a sorrow is far more actual than a table or a chair.
And that's so profound. We think the table is real because we can knock on it. But the table will rot. The table will turn to dust.
But the joy you felt at dinner last week.
That is an electric actuality. It's permanent. It is part of the structure of the universe now.
So feelings are the real concrete. Matter is the temporary illusion.
Precisely. The emotion is the durable good. The physical object is just the packaging it came in.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on the final segment about symbolism, because Seth mentioned something interesting about Jane's predictions.
Yes, towards the end of the session, Seth notes that Jane has been recording her dreams and making some predictions, and she noticed something. One phrase or one symbol in a dream seemed to stand for multiple, completely different events.
And Seth calls this cunning construction.
The subconscious is incredibly efficient. It doesn't waste energy. If it can give you one image, say a blue bird, and that blue bird represents a message about your health, a prediction about a letter you'll receive, and a symbolic representation of freedom, it will use that one symbol to do all three jobs.
It's like a zip file.
Yes, a highly compressed data packet. Seth says this efficiency is a sign of progress. It means we shouldn't take dreams too literally, but we also shouldn't ever dismiss them. They are multi-layered data streams.
It all just circles back to this idea that there is so much more going on than we see. We're walking around in a physical world thinking this is it.
Meanwhile, we're broadcasting electric signals, building invisible cities, and our dreams are running independent simulations in a parallel server.
And we are the bridge. That's the beauty of it. We are the bridge between the physical and the electrical. We are the translators. We are the ones turning physical experience into permanent electrical reality.
So what does this all mean for the listener right now, driving their car or folding their laundry?
I think it means you're powerful. It means you are not a passive observer of the world. You are an active creator. Every emotion you process, every idea you entertain is an act of creation in a medium that is more durable than stone.
It's empowering, but also, a little terrifying.
Responsibility usually is, but it's better than being powerless.
Much better.
So to recap the big aha moments of this deep dive.
1. The separation between real life and dreams is an illusion. It's all one system.
2. Dreams and thoughts are independent electric objects. They don't disappear when you're done with them.
3. The brain is a translator, a modem. The mind is the actual source.
And 4. We are constantly building an electrical counterpart body that survives death.
And finally, a joy is more real than a table.
I think that's the one I'm going to hold on to tonight. Now, I want to leave you all with a provocative thought to chew on. If Seth is right, and every single thought creates a permanent structure in a hidden dimension, take a second to look inside. What kind of city are you building inside yourself right now? Is it a chaotic ruin full of half-finished anxieties? Or is it a structured sanctuary? Because you're the one laying the bricks, one thought at a time.
And if you want to see the blueprints for that city, you really need to go to the source.
Absolutely. This was just session 126. There are hundreds of these sessions. We barely scratched the surface. We highly, highly recommend you go to sethcenter.com, the-early-sessions. Get the books. Read them. Support the New Awareness Network.
These are concepts that need to be digested slowly. You need to read the raw material. It really changes you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this trip to the electric edge of reality.
It was a pleasure, as always.
Sleep tight. And watch your thoughts.